The alarm bells rang across the Volani research station as another explosion shook the metal walls. Director Gilan pressed his webbed hands against the communication panel, his large eyes filled with terror. The peaceful amphibian scientist had never imagined this day would come. His people were researchers, not warriors. They studied stars and planets, not weapons and war. "Emergency transmission to all galactic frequencies," Gilan spoke into the microphone with his trembling voice. "This is Research Station Kepler 7 in the Outer Rim. We are under attack by Karathi forces. They came without warning 3 days ago. Our shields are failing. We have no military ships. Please, someone help us." The message traveled through space at light speed, reaching communication networks across the galaxy. On the civilized worlds near the galactic center, government officials received the distress call and quickly dismissed it. The Outer Rim was too dangerous. The Karathi Empire was too strong. Most species had learned long ago that it was better to ignore such calls than risk their own people. The Karathi had built their empire on fear. They were large, brutal creatures with thick armor-like skin and powerful claws. For 300 years, they had swept across the galaxy, taking what they wanted. They did not simply conquer worlds. They broke the spirits of entire species. Those who survived became slaves, working in mines and factories until they died. Most galactic species followed a simple rule when dealing with the Karathi: stay away and hope they looked somewhere else for their next target. The galaxy had accepted this as the natural order. There were predators and there were prey. The strong took from the weak. This was how things had always been, but the message also reached a small blue planet on the edge of explored space. Earth was listed in the galactic database as a death world, a planet so dangerous that most species could not survive there. The humans who lived there were considered an oddity by galactic standards. They came from a world of constant disasters, predators, diseases, and extreme weather. Most civilized species wondered how anything could evolve to survive in such a horrible place. Admiral Hyunwoo sat in his office at the Terran Defense Command when the message arrived. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes who had spent his life protecting Earth from threats. When he heard Gilan's desperate plea, he did not think about politics or risk assessments. He thought about innocent people dying while others did nothing. "Get me Captain Jae-min," Hyunwoo ordered his aide. Captain Jae-min arrived within minutes. He was younger than the admiral, with sharp features and the confident bearing of someone who had never backed down from a fight. He commanded the fastest battle group in the Terran fleet, 5 ships designed for rapid response missions. "Did you hear the transmission from the Outer Rim?" Hyunwoo asked. "Yes, sir. The Volani research station." "Karathi attack," Jae-min replied. "Every other species in the galaxy is going to ignore this. They always do. The Karathi are too strong, the distance is too far, the risk is too great. That's what they'll say." Jae-min nodded. He had studied galactic politics. Most species were either too afraid or too selfish to help strangers. They had grown comfortable with the idea that some people were meant to suffer so others could be safe. "What are your orders, sir?" Jae-min asked. "How quickly can your battle group reach the Outer Rim?" 12 days at maximum speed, sir. But, Admiral, we'd be going alone. No backup, no support. The other galactic powers won't help us if things go wrong." Hyunwoo stood and walked to the window that looked out over the Pacific Ocean. Earth looked peaceful from here, but he knew better. This planet had forged humanity through millions of years of struggle. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, plagues, predators. Everything had tried to kill his ancestors, but they had survived. More than that, they had learned to protect each other. "Captain, do you know why humans are different from other species?" Hyun-woo asked. "Sir? Most species evolved on worlds that were either very safe or very dangerous. The safe worlds produced peaceful creatures who never learned to fight. The dangerous worlds usually killed everything before it could become intelligent. Earth was different. It was dangerous enough to make us strong, but not so dangerous that we couldn't survive if we worked together." Jae-min understood. Human. Evolution had been shaped by cooperation in the face of constant threats. Other species saw the galaxy as divided between hunters and hunted. Humans saw it differently. "We're going to help them," Hyun-woo decided. "Not because it's profitable, or safe, or politically smart. We're going because they asked for help and no one else will answer." "Yes, sir. I'll prep my ships immediately." "Jae-min," the admiral called as the captain reached the door. "The galaxy is about to learn something new about humans. We don't ignore. Distress calls." Across the galaxy, the Volani continued their desperate fight. Their research station was a marvel of peaceful engineering. Laboratories, libraries, and living spaces designed for comfort and learning. It had never been built to withstand military assault. The Karathi bombardment had already destroyed the outer sections. Hundreds of Volani scientists and their families were dead. Gilan sent his message again and again, but no replies came. The galactic communication networks carried his words to thousands of worlds, but the response was always the same: silence. He began to understand that his people would die alone, as so many others had before them. The Karathi commander, a massive creature named Vorthak, watched the bombardment from his command ship. He was in no hurry. The Volani would surrender soon enough. They always did. Fear was the Karathi's greatest weapon. Once a species understood that resistance was hopeless, they became much easier to manage. Vorthak had conquered 17 worlds in his career. The pattern was always the same. First came the fear. Then the desperate calls for help that no one answered. Then the broken acceptance of defeat. After that, the survivors would work willingly in the mines rather than watch their children die. But something was different this time. His communications officer reported that someone had responded to the Volani distress call, a species called humans from something called Earth. Vorthak had never heard of them. According to the galactic database, they came from a death world in an unexplored system. The entry was brief and dismissive: primitive creatures from a hostile planet. No significant military or economic power. Vorthak dismissed them as irrelevant. He had no way of knowing that he had just made the greatest mistake of his life. The humans were coming, and they did not think like other species. They did not calculate odds or weigh political consequences when someone called for help. They simply answered. In 12 days, the galaxy would begin to change. The Terran defense ship Indomitable cut through hyperspace like a blade through water. Captain Jae-min stood on the bridge, watching the swirling colors of the hyperspace tunnel through the main screen. Behind him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. These were not the pampered officers of peaceful worlds. Every human on this ship had been forged by Earth's harsh lessons. Lieutenant Commander So Young studied tactical displays at her station. She was small by human standards, but her mind was sharp as any weapon. She had earned her rank fighting pirates in the asteroid belts, where hesitation meant death. Now she analyzed everything the galactic database contained about Karathi military. Tactics. "Captain, she called out. "I've finished reviewing Karathi battle records. They rely heavily on fear and intimidation. Most species surrender before the real fighting begins." "What happens when they face someone who doesn't surrender?" Jamin asked. "Unknown, sir. According to these records, that's never happened." Commander Tejo emerged from the engine room, wiping grease from his hands. He was the kind of engineer who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. His engines pushed the human ships faster than their alien designers had thought possible. Like most humans, he refused to accept that something couldn't be done just because it was difficult. "All ships reporting ready, Captain," Tejo announced. "The Defiant, Resilient, Stormbringer, and Guardian are maintaining formation. We'll reach the Volani system in 9 days." Dr. Minji approached from the science station. She was not military, but had insisted on joining the mission. As Earth's leading expert on alien biology, she wanted to understand the species they were trying to save. Her gentle nature hid a fierce determination to protect the innocent. "Captain, I've been studying the Volani," she reported. "They're completely peaceful. Their entire culture is built around learning and discovery. They've never developed weapons or military tactics. They literally don't know how to fight." "And the Karathi?" Jamin asked. "Brutal, but predictable. They're apex predators from a harsh world, but they've grown soft through centuries of easy victories. They expect their enemies to break under pressure. When someone surrenders quickly, they show mercy. When someone resists too long, they destroy everything." Jamin nodded grimly. The galaxy had taught the Karathi that violence always won. They had never faced an opponent who matched their strength and exceeded their determination. While the human fleet raced through hyperspace, the galaxy watched and waited. On the peaceful world of Altair Prime, the Council of Civilized Species held an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered in the Great Crystal Chamber to discuss the human response to the Volani crisis. Ambassador Kelleth of the Rigel Union spoke first. His people were tall, gray-skinned humanoids who prized logic above all else. "The humans' decision to intervene is illogical. They risk their entire fleet to save a species they've never met. The cost-benefit analysis shows no possible advantage." "Perhaps that's exactly why they're doing it," suggested Counselor Thara of the Centauri Federation. Her people were small, peaceful creatures who had survived by being very good at hiding. "The Galactic database says humans evolved on a death world. Maybe they think differently than we do." Deathworld survivors are usually either completely violent or completely pacifist, argued Representative Vex of the Tau Ceti Alliance. "Humans appear to be neither. They built a spacefaring civilization which suggests intelligence and cooperation, but they're flying into certain death for strangers, which suggests insanity." The debate continued for hours, but reached no conclusions. Most council members agreed that the humans would be destroyed quickly. A few hoped they might delay the Karathi long enough for the Volani to evacuate. None believed the humans could actually win. Back on Earth, Admiral Hyun Woo received regular updates from Jamin's fleet. The ships were performing well, but he worried about what they would face. Intelligence reports suggested the Karathi had at least 20 ships at the Volani station, including several heavy bombardment vessels. His aide, Colonel Sung Ho, entered the office with the latest communications intercepts. "Sir, we're monitoring chatter from across the galaxy. Most species think we're insane for responding to the distress call. A few are quietly hoping we succeed, but none are willing to help." "What about our own people?" Hyun-woo asked. "Full support from the Defense Council and Parliament. The public response has been overwhelming. Thousands of volunteers are requesting permission to join rescue ships if we need to send reinforcements." Yun-Woo smiled grimly. This was why humans were different. Other species calculated risk and reward before acting. Humans heard someone calling for help, and their first instinct was to answer, regardless of the cost. On the Indomitable, Captain Jae-min called his senior staff to the briefing room. The wall screens showed everything they knew about the target system. The Volani station orbited a small, peaceful world where the researchers had been studying unusual energy readings from the system's star. Current situation, So Young began. Karathi fleet consists of 1 heavy cruiser, 4 attack vessels, and approximately 15 smaller ships. They've established orbital bombardment positions and landed troops on the station. Volani resistance is concentrated in the central research complex. Our tactical advantages? Jae-min asked. Speed and unpredictability. Karathi ships are heavily armed but slow. They're built for intimidation, not maneuver warfare. Our ships are faster and more agile. Commander Taeho pulled up technical specifications. I've been studying Karathi ship designs. They focus on forward firepower and heavy armor. Sides and rear are less protected. If we can get behind them, we can hurt them. Jae-min finished. What about their ground forces? Dr. Minji consulted her notes. Karathi troops are large and strong, but they rely on fear tactics. They've never faced determined resistance. Most species they conquer are either too weak to fight or too scared to try. They're about to learn something new, So Young said with a cold smile. Humans don't scare easily. The days passed quickly as the fleet approached its destination. Each crew member prepared in their own way. Engineers checked and rechecked every system. Gunners practiced targeting drills until they could hit moving targets in their sleep. Marines sharpened combat skills that had been honed in the dangerous neighborhoods of Earth's great cities. Dr. Minji spent her time learning everything she could about Volani culture. These were people who had devoted their lives to peaceful exploration of the universe. They had never harmed anyone. They deserved better than to die alone while the galaxy watched and did nothing. On the final day of their journey, Captain Jae-min addressed his fleet over the communication system. His words reached every human ship racing toward the outer rim. In 6 hours, we'll drop out of hyperspace in the Volani system. We'll be outnumbered and far from home. The enemy thinks we're just another weak species that will run when things get difficult. They're wrong. We're humans. We don't abandon people who need help. We don't calculate odds when someone's in trouble. We answer the call. He paused, looking at the faces of his crew. These were good people who had volunteered for a mission that might kill them all. They did it because strangers had asked for help. Today, the galaxy learns what humans really are. We're not conquerors or traitors or politicians. We're protectors. When someone calls for help, we come. When someone threatens the innocent, we stand in their way. The Karathi think they understand how this works. They're about to discover they're wrong. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace 6 hours later. The human fleet burst into normal space at the edge of the Volani system like hunters emerging from tall grass. Captain Jae-min immediately saw the situation was worse than their intelligence had suggested. The Karathi had brought more ships than expected, and the research station was already half destroyed. Tactical report, he ordered sharply. Lieutenant Commander So Young's fingers flew across her console. 23 Karathi vessels confirmed, 1 dreadnought class, 6 heavy cruisers, 16 escort ships. They're in bombardment formation around the station. Long-range sensors show Karathi troops on the station itself. Any response from the Volani? Weak signals from the central complex. They're still alive but barely holding on. Commander Tejo leaned over the engineering station. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from those Karathi ships. They're not just attacking, they're charging up for something big. Maybe a planet-killer weapon. Dr. Minji turned pale. They're going to destroy everything, not just the station, but the entire research base on the planet below. Thousands of Villani families live down there. Jamin felt cold anger settle in his chest. The Karathi weren't just conquering, they were preparing to commit genocide. In his experience, there was only one response to that kind of evil. Communications. Open a channel to the research station. The main screen flickered and showed a desperate scene. Director Gilan crouched behind damaged equipment in what looked like a laboratory. His large eyes were filled with exhaustion and hopelessness. Behind him, other Villani scientists worked frantically to reinforce barricades. Director Gilan, this is Captain J. Min of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. Gilan stared at the screen in disbelief. You came? But the Galactic database says your world is in an unexplored system. How did you get here so quickly? We left as soon as we heard your message. How many survivors do you have? Perhaps 300 in this section. But Captain, you don't understand. The Karathi have dozens of ships. They've been bombing us for days. Their ground troops will break through our defenses within hours. Not anymore, Jamin said simply. We're here now. On the Karathi command ship, Vorthak received reports of the new arrivals with mild curiosity. His intelligence officer, a scarred veteran named Krex, studied the sensor readings with growing confusion. Commander, the new ships don't match any known designs in our database. 5 vessels, unknown configuration. They're not responding to our demands for identification. Vorthak barely looked up from his tactical display. The Villani station was almost ready to fall. A few more hours of bombardment would crack their final defenses. Probably scavengers hoping to pick up valuable research equipment. Send a squadron to drive them away. Sir, there's something else. They're transmitting on all frequencies. They claim to be from something called Earth. Never heard of it. Are they demanding tribute? No, sir. They're ordering us to surrender. Vorthak finally looked up, his massive head turning toward the communication station. In 300 years of conquest, no one had ever ordered the Karathi to surrender. The idea was so ridiculous he almost laughed. Destroy them, he ordered casually. 4 Karathi attack ships broke formation and moved toward the human fleet. Their commanders expected the unknown vessels to flee as soon as they realized the situation. Most species did. Even the brave ones usually tried to negotiate when they saw how badly they were outnumbered. Captain Jamin watched the approaching ships with calm professionalism. So young, what's your analysis? They're coming at us in standard intimidation. Formation. Big ships, heavy weapons, lots of noise and bluster. They expect us to run. Recommendations? Hit them fast and hard before they know what's happening. Show them we're not like other species. Do it. The human ships moved like predators striking. Where Karathi vessels were built for overwhelming firepower and psychological impact, human ships were designed for speed, precision, and tactical flexibility. The Indomitable and her sister ships accelerated past what most alien species considered safe speeds. Lieutenant Commander So Young coordinated the attack with the cold efficiency of someone who had learned warfare in asteroid fields and asteroid mining conflicts. Target their engines first. Disable, don't destroy. We want them to report back to their commander. The human ships struck the Karathi squadron like lightning hitting a tree. Precise energy beams disabled engines and weapon systems while avoiding critical life support. Within minutes, 4 Karathi attack ships drifted helplessly in space, their crews shocked and confused. "Communications to the disabled ships," Jamin ordered. "Tell them they can return to their fleet. Give them this message for their commander. Surrender now, or we'll disable every ship you have." On the Karathi command ship, Vorthak stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 4 of his ships had been neutralized in less than 5 minutes. The unknown vessels hadn't even used their full firepower. They had precisely disabled each target, without causing unnecessary casualties. "How is this possible?" he demanded. Krex checked his instruments again. "Sir, those ships are incredibly fast and maneuverable. Their weapons are more accurate than anything in our database. And their tactics, they're like nothing we've ever seen." "What do you mean?" "They fight like apex predators, sir, but they show restraint like prey species. They could have destroyed our ships completely, but they chose not to. I don't understand it." Vorthak had built his career on understanding his enemies. Prey species were easy. They surrendered quickly when faced with superior force. Predator species were predictable. They fought until they won or died. These humans seemed to be something else entirely. Back on the research station, Director Gilan watched the impossible unfold on his screens. The humans had disabled 4 Karathi ships as easily as swatting insects. But more importantly, they had done it without killing anyone unnecessarily. "Who are these humans?" he whispered to his aide, Dr. Yilan. "The Galactic database has very little information," she replied. "It lists their world as extremely dangerous. Apparently, they evolved under constant threat from natural disasters, climate changes, and predators. Most species from such worlds either become completely violent or go extinct. But they came to help us. Yes, that's what I don't understand." On the Indomitable, Dr. Minji monitored communications from both sides. She was beginning to understand something important about the psychology of this conflict. The Karathi had spent centuries conquering species who either couldn't fight back or wouldn't fight back effectively. They had never faced opponents who matched their strength but exceeded their moral courage. "Captain," she called out, I understand what's happening here. The Karathi Empire is built on a simple premise: the strong take from the weak. They've never encountered a species that was both strong enough to fight them and principled enough to fight for strangers. What does that mean for our mission? It means they don't know how to respond to us. Their entire worldview is based on the idea that power determines right. We're showing them something they've never seen before. Power used to protect rather than exploit. Captain Jamin nodded thoughtfully. "Communications. Open a channel to the Karathi command ship." The main screen showed a massive, scarred creature that could only be the Karathi commander. Vorthak's reptilian features were twisted in confusion and growing anger. "I am Commander Vorthak of the Karathi Third Fleet. You will identify yourselves and explain your interference in our conquest. I am Captain J. Min of the Terran Defense Fleet. We're here because the Villani asked for help. You have one chance to withdraw your forces and leave this system peacefully." Vorthak's laugh was like grinding metal. "You command 5 small ships against my entire fleet. Do you think threats will make us retreat?" "I don't think you understand," Jamin replied calmly. "We're not threatening you. We're giving you the opportunity to leave with your dignity intact. The alternative is that we disable every ship in your fleet and broadcast your defeat across the galaxy." "Impossible. We are Karathi. We have conquered 100 worlds. And we are humans. We protect people who can't protect themselves. You've never faced anything like us before." Vorthak cut the connection, his mind reeling. In his experience, Only two types of species made such bold statements: those too stupid to understand their situation, or those powerful enough to back up their words. These humans had already proven they weren't stupid. The next few hours would determine which category they truly belonged to. Commander Vorthak stood on his command bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed 5 human ships positioned between his fleet and the Vallani station. His scarred hands gripped the rail until the metal bent under the pressure. In 3 centuries of conquest, no one had ever dared to challenge the Karathi so directly. "Sir," his intelligence officer Krex reported nervously, "the humans are broadcasting something strange." "What kind of strange?" "They're transmitting music, sir. Something they call battle songs. Our translators are having difficulty with some of the concepts, but the basic message seems to be about never giving up and protecting the innocent." Vorthak snarled. "Most species broadcast surrender terms or pleas for mercy when facing the Karathi fleet. These humans were playing songs about fighting. Either they were insane or they knew something he didn't. All ships, attack formation. We'll crush them quickly and get back to the real business of conquering the station." 18 Karathi ships moved toward the human fleet in a massive wedge formation designed to overwhelm enemies through sheer firepower. It was a tactic that had worked for 300 years against every species they had encountered. Captain J. Mean watched the approaching armada with the calm focus of a hunter facing dangerous prey. So young, tactical assessment. "They're using standard overwhelming force doctrine," Lieutenant Commander So Young replied. "Concentrate maximum firepower on a single point. Break the enemy formation, then destroy the scattered survivors. It's effective against species that panic under pressure." "Will it work against us?" "Not if we refuse to panic, sir." "Commander." Tejo called from engineering. "All ships reporting battle ready. Engines at maximum efficiency. Weapons charged. We're ready to show them what Earth-trained crews can do." Dr. Minji monitored alien communications from her science station. "Captain, I'm picking up interesting chatter from the Karathi ships. Their crews are nervous. They've never fought an enemy that didn't either surrender immediately or break. Formation at the first sign of casualties." "What makes you think they're nervous?" "Their communications protocols are becoming more formal and rigid. In my experience with alien psychology, that usually indicates stress. They're following procedures, exactly because they don't know what else to do." Jamin nodded. Fear was a weapon that could work both ways. The Karathi had spent so long relying on their reputation for brutality that they had forgotten how to adapt when fear didn't work. "All ships, execute pattern Delta 7. The human fleet scattered like leaves in a strong wind, but in a precisely coordinated pattern that kept them within mutual support range. Where the Karathi expected to face a solid formation they could overwhelm, they found themselves shooting at rapidly moving targets that refused to stay still long enough to hit. Lieutenant Commander So Young coordinated the counterattack with the precision of a surgeon and the intensity of a warrior. Indomitable, target the lead cruiser's weapon systems. Defiant and Resilience, hit their flanking ships. Stormbringer and Guardian, sweep around their rear. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves hunting something larger than themselves. They struck quickly, disabled key systems, then moved away before the Karathi could respond effectively. Within minutes, 3 enemy ships had lost weapons, or engines. On the Karathi flagship, Vorthak watched his tactical display with growing disbelief. The humans were everywhere and nowhere, hitting his ships with surgical precision while avoiding his return fire. It was like trying to swat insects with a hammer. "Damage report," he demanded. "3 ships disabled, sir. The enemy is targeting specific systems rather than trying to destroy us completely. Their accuracy is unprecedented. Why aren't they trying to kill us? Krex studied his instruments, confusion evident in his voice. Unknown, sir. They have the capability to destroy our ships, but they're choosing to disable them instead. This behavior doesn't match any known military doctrine. Vorthak had spent his career conquering species that fought in predictable ways. Prey species surrendered quickly. Predator species fought to the death. These humans seemed to follow different rules entirely. Back on the research station, Director Galan watched the battle through external cameras with amazement. The humans were outnumbered 4-1, but they fought with a coordination and skill he had never seen before. More importantly, they were risking their lives for people they had never met. "Dr. Yilan," he called to his aide, "are you recording this?" "Yes, Director. The entire galactic community needs to see what's happening here. These humans, they're not fighting like conquerors. They're fighting like protectors." "I've been studying their transmissions," she replied. "Their entire culture seems built around the concept of helping others. They have something they call heroism. The idea that the strong should protect the weak, regardless of personal cost." Gilan felt something he hadn't experienced in days. Hope. The galaxy had always operated on the principle that might made right. The Karathi took what they wanted because they were strong enough to take it. But the humans seemed to believe that strength carried responsibility. Commander Tae-Ho's voice crackled over the Indomitable's communication system. "Captain, I've been analyzing Karathi ship designs during the battle. Their vessels are built for intimidation and overwhelming firepower, but they have significant weaknesses." "Explain," Jamin ordered, while dodging plasma fire from 2 Karathi cruisers. "They focus all their defensive systems on frontal armor and shields. Their engines and rear sections are much more vulnerable. Also, their ships are designed to fight in formation. When they're scattered, they lose coordination rapidly." Lieutenant Commander So Young grinned fiercely. "In other words, they're only dangerous when they're allowed to fight the way they want to fight." "Exactly. Force them into our kind of fight, and their advantages disappear." Dr. Minji had been monitoring Karathi communications throughout the battle. What she heard made her understand something crucial about their enemy. "Captain, the Karathi crews are starting to panic. They're not used to fighting opponents who can match their firepower and exceed their tactical skills." "What kind of panic?" "They're requesting permission to retreat. Their crews are trained for quick, overwhelming victories against weak opponents. They don't know how to handle a prolonged fight against equals." Captain Jamin realized this was the moment that would determine everything. The Karathi had built their empire on the belief that overwhelming force could solve any problem. If they learned that some enemies couldn't be overwhelmed, their entire worldview would collapse. "All ships, prepare for final assault. Target their command vessel. It's time to show Commander Vorthak that bullies only win when no one fights back." The 5 human ships converged on the Karathi flagship like arrows aimed at a target. Vorthak watched them approach with growing desperation. His ship was the largest and most powerful in the fleet, but it was also the least maneuverable. "All weapons, concentrate fire on the lead ship," he ordered. Massive plasma cannons swiveled toward the Indomitable, unleashing enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the human ship danced between the energy beams like a fighter avoiding punches from a much larger opponent. "Impossible!" Vorthak breathed. "Nothing should be able to move that fast." "Sir," Krex reported, "our weapons weren't designed to track such agile targets. They're getting closer." The Indomitable swept past. The flagship's bow, its precision weapons disabling shield generators with surgical accuracy. The other human ships followed, each striking key systems before the Karathi could respond. Within minutes, the flagship hung helpless in space, its weapons disabled and engines dead. Around it, the rest of the Karathi fleet faced the same fate. 18 ships defeated by 5. Captain Jamin opened communications to the Karathi command ship. Commander Vorthak, this is your final warning. Withdraw your forces from this system immediately, or we'll tow your ships to the nearest galactic authority and charge you with attempted genocide. Vorthak stared at the human captain on his screen. Everything he had believed about the galaxy was crumbling around him. The strong were supposed to rule the weak. That was the natural order. But these humans had proven themselves stronger while fighting to protect the weak. Who are you? He asked quietly. We're humans, Jamin replied. We come from a world that taught us to protect each other. Today we're teaching the galaxy that bullies don't always win. For the first time in his life, Commander Vorthak had no answer. The silence on the Karathi command ship was broken only by the hum of emergency life support systems. Commander Vorthak stared at his tactical display, which showed 18 disabled ships floating helplessly around 5 human vessels. His scarred hands trembled as the full reality of his defeat settled in. Sir, Intelligence Officer Krex whispered, what are your orders? Vorthak had no answer. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never faced this situation. The Karathi had always been the predators, never the prey. Their entire military doctrine was built around intimidating weaker species into submission. When that failed, they used overwhelming force to crush resistance quickly. But the humans had done something impossible. They had matched Karathi's strength while fighting to protect strangers. It violated everything Vorthak understood about how the galaxy worked. Captain Jamin's voice came through the communication system again. Commander, I'm waiting for your answer. Will you withdraw peacefully, or do we need to take more direct action? Before Vorthak could respond, alarms began ringing throughout his ship. His tactical officer, a young Karathi named Thek, called out in panic. Sir, the humans are launching small craft toward the research station. They're landing troops on the station itself. On the Vallani research station, Director Gilan heard the docking clamps engage on their emergency airlock. After days of terror, he hardly dared to hope that rescue had actually arrived. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure, and 3 figures in strange armor stepped through. The humans were smaller than he had expected, but they moved with confident precision that spoke of extensive training. Their leader removed her helmet, revealing a young woman with determined eyes. Director Gilan? I'm Lieutenant Namsuk of the Terran Marines. We're here to get you out of this. Gilan stared at her in amazement. You're so young and small. How did you defeat the Karathi? Namsuk smiled grimly. Size isn't everything, sir. We learned that fighting creatures much bigger than us back home. Now, how many survivors do you have? And where are the Karathi ground troops? 300 of my people in this section. The Karathi have perhaps 50 soldiers in the outer rings, moving toward us through the damaged corridors. Not anymore, said Sergeant Dong Hyun, Nam Suk's second-in-command. He was checking readings on a tactical scanner. Our people are already engaging them. The Karathi ground forces are about to learn the same lesson their fleet just learned, deep. In the station's corridors, Karathi shock troops advanced through the smoke and debris of their bombardment. These were elite warriors, each standing nearly 3 meters tall and armed with weapons designed to break the will of any enemy. They had never encountered serious resistance from any species. Squad leader Gracht led 12 warriors toward the Villani's final stronghold. His thick armor could stop most small arms fire, and his plasma rifle could cut through steel walls. Behind him, his troops moved with the confident swagger of predators approaching helpless prey. They turned a corner and found 6 humans waiting for them. Gracht had studied the brief intelligence reports about these new aliens, small creatures. From a death world, probably scavengers hoping to pick up valuable technology. He raised his plasma rifle casually, expecting them to flee. Instead, the humans opened fire. Marine Corporal Hai Jin had grown up in the dangerous districts of Neo, Seoul, where survival meant learning to fight larger, stronger opponents. She and her squad had trained for years to face exactly this kind of situation. When the Karathi appeared, she didn't hesitate. Contact front, take cover, and engage. The human Marines moved like dancers in a deadly ballet. They used the stations, damaged corridors for cover, appearing and disappearing faster than the Karathi could track. Their weapons were smaller than Karathi plasma rifles, but far more accurate. Gracht felt something he had never experienced before: panic. These tiny creatures were everywhere, hitting his warriors with precise shots that found gaps in their armor. 2 of his soldiers fell within the first 30 seconds. Impossible! He snarled into his communicator. How can such small beings fight so effectively? The answer came from Corporal Hee-jin as she rolled behind cover and fired again. Because we learned to fight things that wanted to eat us. Within minutes, Gracht's squad was scattered and demoralized. Several warriors had fled back toward their landing craft. Others huddled behind cover, afraid to advance. The humans had done something no species had ever done before. They had made Karathi warriors afraid. Back on the command ship, Vorthak received increasingly desperate reports from his ground forces. His elite troops, warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, were being systematically defeated by human Marines who seemed to treat combat like a deadly game. "Sir," Krex reported with a shaking voice, "all ground units are requesting immediate evacuation. They report that the humans fight like nothing they've ever encountered, fast, coordinated, and completely fearless." "How many humans are on the station?" "Perhaps 30 or 40, sir. Against 200 of our best warriors?" "Yes, sir. And, sir, the humans are winning." Vorthak's worldview collapsed completely. The Karathi Empire was built on a simple principle: big, strong creatures dominated small, weak ones. It was the natural order of the universe. But these humans were proving that principle wrong. Dr. Minji, monitoring communications from the Indomitable, began to understand the full psychological impact of what was happening. "Captain, the Karathi aren't just losing. They're experiencing something their culture has no framework for understanding." "Explain," Jae-min requested. "Their entire society is based on the concept of might making right. The strong rule, the weak serve. They've never encountered a species that was both strong enough to defeat them and principled enough to fight for others. It's breaking their understanding of how the universe works. Is that good or bad for us?" "Both. It means they're less likely to fight effectively because they're confused and demoralized. But it also means they might become desperate enough to do something unpredictable." As if summoned by her words, Commander Vorthak's voice came over the communication channel. "Human Captain, I propose a single combat between champions. Your best warrior against mine. The winner takes the system." Jae-min frowned. "That's not how this works, Commander. This isn't about conquest or territory. We're here to protect innocent people." "Then what do you want?" "For you to withdraw your forces and leave these people in peace." And if we refuse, then we'll disable the rest of your ships and escort you out of the system ourselves. Vorthak realized that he was facing something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans had the power to destroy his fleet completely, but they were offering mercy instead. They had defeated his ground troops, but they weren't slaughtering the survivors. They fought like apex predators, but showed restraint like the most peaceful herbivores. I need to understand, Vorthak said quietly. Why do you fight for strangers? What do you gain from protecting people you've never met? Captain Yemin was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of human history. On our world, we learned that survival meant protecting each other. The storms, predators, and disasters that tried to kill us were bigger than any individual. We survived by standing together. That taught us something the galaxy seems to have forgotten. That true strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. But you could take anything you wanted. Your ships, your warriors, your weapons. You could conquer systems across the galaxy. Why would we want to? Taking things from others doesn't make us stronger. It just makes us bullies. We'd rather be protectors. For the first time in his life, Commander Vorthak encountered a concept that his warrior culture had no name for: heroism. The idea that the strong should serve the weak rather than ruling them was so alien to Karathi, thinking that he struggled to process it. But as he watched his disabled ships and received reports of his defeated ground forces, he began to understand something important. The humans weren't just stronger fighters. They were fighting for something bigger than conquest or glory. They were fighting for the idea that everyone deserved protection, regardless of strength or species, and that made them more dangerous to the Karathi Empire than any fleet of warships. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On thousands of worlds, beings who had never heard of Earth gathered around communication screens to watch impossible footage. 5 unknown ships had defeated an entire Karathi fleet. Small human warriors had routed elite Karathi ground forces. The natural order of the galaxy had been turned upside down. Ambassador Keleth of the Rigel Union stood before the Council of Civilized Species, his gray skin pale with shock. The great crystal chamber buzzed with whispered conversations as representatives tried to understand what they had witnessed. The tactical recordings are clear, Keleth announced. The human fleet achieved total victory without destroying a single enemy vessel. Their ground forces defeated Karathi warriors in direct combat. This should be impossible. Councillor Thara of the Centauri Federation raised a trembling hand. Ambassador, my people have extensive records of Karathi conquests. They have never been defeated in open warfare. Never. How did these humans accomplish what entire alliances could not? I believe, said Representative Vex of the Tau Ceti Alliance slowly, that we have fundamentally misunderstood what humans are. The debate that followed would change galactic politics forever. For the first time in recorded history, the Council faced evidence that predator and prey were not the only options. There was a third path: protector. On the Outer Rim, Captain J. Min received the first of many unexpected communications. The voice that came through the Indomitable's speakers belonged to Engineer Prime Corlan of the Kalani Technical Consortium. Human. Captain, this is the industrial ship Forge-Bearer requesting permission to approach your position. Lieutenant Commander So Young checked her sensors. Captain, it's a Kalani engineering vessel, heavily modified but no weapons that I can detect. What do the Kalani want with us? Jamin wondered aloud. Dr. Minji consulted her database. The Kalani are master engineers and shipbuilders. They've been forced to pay tribute to the Karathi for decades. If I had to guess, I'd say they want to join us. The communication channel crackled again. Captain, we have been slaves to Karathi demands for 30 years. We watched your battle and saw something we thought was impossible. Someone standing up to them and winning. We offer our services to your cause. Commander Tejo looked up from his engineering station with genuine excitement. Captain, the Kalani build the best starship technology in the galaxy. If they're offering to help us... Open communications, Jamin decided. Engineer Prime Corlin, we appreciate your offer, but we're not building an empire. We're just here to protect the Villani. We understand, Captain, but word is spreading. Other species are moving. The Thraxian merchant fleets are offering logistical support. The Zephyrian defense cooperatives want to join your fleet. You may not be building an empire, but you're starting something that could free the galaxy from Karathi tyranny. On the research station, Director Gilan worked alongside Lieutenant Nam-Suk to coordinate the evacuation of wounded Villani to human medical facilities. The human medics had proven as skilled at healing as their warriors were at fighting. Lieutenant, Gilan said carefully, may I ask you something about human psychology? Sure, Director. What do you want to know? Your people risked everything to save strangers. Most species in the galaxy wouldn't do that. They would calculate the cost and decide it wasn't worth the risk. Why are humans different? Nam-Suk paused in her work, considering the question. I think it's because of where we come from. Earth tried to kill us in every way possible. Ice ages, volcanoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, predators, diseases, everything. But we survived because we learned to protect each other. Many species face hardships. Not all become protectors. True. But Earth was special. It was dangerous enough to make us strong, but not so dangerous that we couldn't survive by working together. We learned that individual strength means nothing if you don't use it to help others. Dr. Yilan, who had been recording the conversation, looked up from her notes. Lieutenant, do you think other species could learn this philosophy? I hope so. That's kind of the point of what we're doing here. Meanwhile, Commander Vorthak sat in his disabled command ship, staring at reports that made no sense. 3 more alien fleets had arrived in the system, not to fight the humans, but to join them. The Kalani had brought advanced technology. The Thraxians offered supply ships and trade routes. The Zephyrians brought their defensive expertise. Sir, Krex reported nervously, we're receiving transmission requests from across the galaxy. Species we've never heard of want to communicate with the humans. Some are offering alliance. Others are asking for protection from our other fleets. How many? Vorthak asked quietly. 17 so far, sir. And the number keeps growing. Vorthak realized that his defeat was becoming something much larger than a single battle. The humans had proven that the Karathi could be beaten. More importantly, they had shown that strength could be used to protect rather than conquer. Captain Jamin found himself commanding not 5 ships, but a growing armada of species who had never dared to resist Karathi expansion. The bridge of the Indomitable had become an improvised diplomatic center as representatives from different worlds coordinated their response to centuries of oppression. Captain, Dr. Minji reported, I've been analyzing the psychological profiles of our new allies. They're all species who had the capability to resist the Karathi, but lacked the moral framework to justify the risk. What do you mean? They could have fought back individually, but their cultures emphasized self-preservation over protecting others. Seeing humans risk everything for strangers gave them a new model to follow. Commander Tejo looked up from his engineering console where he was coordinating with Kalani technicians. Captain, they're offering to upgrade our ships with their technology. Improved shields, faster engines, more precise weapons. They want to make sure we can protect more people. Are you sure they understand we're not conquerors? I think that's exactly why they want to help us, sir. The transformation was remarkable. Within days of the Villani rescue, the human fleet had become the nucleus of something unprecedented in galactic history. A voluntary alliance dedicated to protecting the weak rather than exploiting them. Admiral Hyun Woo, monitoring events from Earth, found himself coordinating with species he had never heard of. His simple decision to answer a distress call had triggered a galactic revolution. Sir, Colonel Sung Ho reported, we're receiving formal requests for protection from 47 different systems. Apparently, word of our intervention has spread throughout Korathi-controlled space. Entire worlds are asking us to help them throw off their oppressors. We can't protect everyone, Hyun Woo said, though his heart disagreed with his words. Actually, sir, we might not have to. The Kalani engineers are sharing their technology freely with anyone who opposes the Korathi. The Thraxians are organizing supply lines. The Zephyrians are training defense forces. We started something, but it's becoming self-sustaining. What do you mean? We showed the galaxy that bullies can be beaten, sir. Now everyone wants to try. Back on the Korathi command ship, Vorthak made a decision that would echo through history. He opened communications to Captain Jae-min one final. Time. Human Captain, I formally surrender my fleet to your authority. Jae-min was quiet for a long moment. Commander, we don't want to rule your people. We just want you to stop hurting others. I understand that now. But my empire is built on conquest and oppression. If your way is truly better, then perhaps it's time for my people to learn a new path. Are you sure? Captain, you have shown me something I thought was impossible. That strength can serve justice rather than serving itself. My warriors need to learn this lesson. Will you teach us? Captain Jamin looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They had come to save one research station and had accidentally started a galactic transformation. The question now was whether they were ready for the responsibility that came with showing the galaxy a better way. Yes, he said finally. We'll teach you. But understand, this isn't about making you like us. It's about helping you become the best version of yourselves. The age of the Korathi Empire was ending. The age of galactic cooperation was about to begin. 3 weeks after the rescue of the Villani research station, Captain Jae-min stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching something that would have been impossible to imagine just a month earlier. His small fleet had grown into an armada of over 200 ships from dozens of different species, all united by a single purpose: protecting those who could not protect themselves. The formation stretched across space like a constellation of hope. Kalani engineering ships worked alongside Thraxian supply vessels. Zephyrian defense platforms protected Alteran science ships. Even former Korathi vessels flew in the formation, their crews learning new ways to use their strength. Captain, Lieutenant Commander So Young reported from her tactical station, "We're receiving the final approach clearance for the Korathi home system. All Allied ships are ready for the operation." Commander Tejo looked up from his engineering console, where he was coordinating with alien technicians. "Sir, the fleet integration is remarkable. Kalani technology, Thraxian logistics, Zephyrian defensive systems, and human tactics. We've created something no single species could have built alone." Dr. Min-ji monitored communications from her science station. Captain, I'm receiving surrender offers from 17 Karathi colony worlds. They're asking for protection from their own military leaders who refuse to accept the new reality. The transformation had been swift and dramatic. Word of the human victory had spread throughout Karathi space like wildfire. Conquered species, who had served the Empire for generations, suddenly found the courage to resist. Colonial governors faced rebellions they couldn't suppress. Fleet commanders discovered their crews no longer believed in the old ways of conquest and oppression. But not all Karathi accepted the change. War Commander Zelthar, Vorthak's superior and architect of the Empire's expansion, had consolidated the remaining loyal forces around the home world. He commanded nearly 300 ships and had sworn to destroy the human alliance before it could spread further. This ends now, Zelthar had broadcast to the galaxy. The natural order will be restored. The strong will rule. The weak will serve. These human idealists will learn what real power means. Admiral Hyunwoo's voice came through the communication system from Earth. Captain Jaemin, you have full authority to negotiate the terms of peace. But remember, we're not conquerors. We're protectors. Our goal is to end the Karathi threat to innocent species, not to destroy the Karathi themselves. Understood, sir. We'll offer them the same choice we've offered everyone else. Join us in building something better, or step aside and let others do it. Former Commander Vorthak, now serving as an advisor to the human fleet, approached the command station. His rehabilitation had been remarkable. Learning to use strength to protect rather than dominate had given him a sense of purpose he had never experienced during his centuries of conquest. Captain, Vorthak said quietly, Zelthar will not surrender easily. He represents the old guard of Karathi leadership, those who built their entire identity around being apex predators. Admitting they were wrong would destroy everything they believe about themselves. What do you recommend? Give him a demonstration he cannot ignore. Show him what united species can accomplish that divided ones cannot. Director Gilan contacted the fleet from his rebuilt research station. The Volani had become eager supporters of the human alliance, offering their scientific expertise to help integrate different technologies and species. Captain Jaemin, we've completed our analysis of the Karathi home system. The planet has 3 billion civilians who have never left their world. Most of them have no connection to the military's crimes. Thank you, Director. That's exactly why we need to be careful about how we handle this. Engineer Prime Corlin of the Kalani spoke from his technical ship. Captain, our joint technology upgrade is complete. Every ship in the fleet now has integrated defense systems, communication networks, and targeting computers. We fight as one organism now, not as separate species. Lieutenant Nam Suk reported from the Marine transport ship, where she was training mixed-species ground forces. Sir, we have volunteers from 18 different worlds ready to provide security for civilian populations during the transition. Everyone understands this is about protection, not conquest. As the massive Allied fleet approached the Karathi home system, Captain Jaemin reflected on how much had changed since they first received the Volani distress call. What had started as a simple rescue mission had become a galactic revolution. The idea that strength should serve justice rather than self-interest was spreading faster than any military conquest. Captain, Dr. Minji called out, I'm receiving a transmission from the Karathi home world. It's not from Zelthar. It's from civilian populations. They're asking for protection from their own military. How many? Thousands of separate transmissions. Entire cities are requesting safe passage away from military installations. They don't want to be caught in the fighting. Commander Tejo shook his head in amazement. Even the Karathi civilians are choosing protection over conquest. The old empire is collapsing from within. The Allied fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Karathi system in perfect formation. 200 ships from dozens of species, united by principles rather than force. The psychological impact was enormous. This was not an invasion, fleet, but a rescue operation on a galactic scale. War Commander Zelthar's response was immediate and predictable. His 300 ships moved to intercept the Allies in traditional Karathi battle formation. A massive wedge designed to break enemy formations through overwhelming firepower. All ships, Captain Jamin broadcast to the Allied fleet. Remember our mission. We're here to offer peace, not to destroy anyone. Disable their weapons if they attack, but protect their lives. Show them what unity can accomplish. The two fleets met in the space between the outer planets and the inhabited world. But what happened next was unlike any battle in galactic history. Instead of engaging in ship-to-ship combat, the Allied fleet demonstrated something that stunned observers throughout the galaxy. They moved as a single organism, with perfect coordination between species that had never fought together before. Kalani. Shields protected Thraxian ships. Zephyrian defensive systems coordinated with human tactical computers. Every vessel in the formation supported every other vessel. War Commander Zelthar's ships, despite their superior numbers, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. The Allied fleet didn't just fight better, they fought like a unified organism, while the Karathi fought like separate predators competing for prey. Within 2 hours, half of Zelthar's fleet was disabled. The remaining ships found themselves surrounded by aliens who should have been enemies but fought like family. The psychological impact was devastating. Everything the Karathi military believed about strength and conquest was proven wrong before their eyes. "This is impossible," Zelthar transmitted to his remaining ships. "They're different species. They should be competing with each other, not cooperating." Captain Jamin opened communications to the Karathi War Commander. "Commander, Zelthar, we're offering you the same choice we've offered everyone else. Join us in building a galaxy where strength protects rather than conquers, or step aside and let others do it. Never. The strong rule. The weak serve. This is the natural order. Look around you, Commander. Your natural order is floating helpless in space. Our ships are intact. Our crews are working together. Which philosophy is stronger?" For the first time in his life, Zelthar had no answer. The evidence surrounded him in the form of disabled Karathi ships and triumphant alien vessels, working in perfect harmony. Everything he had believed about the galaxy was proving false. Dr. Minji's voice came over the communication system. "Captain, I'm receiving surrender requests from 60% of the remaining Karathi ships. Their crews want to join the Alliance." "What? About civilian evacuation?" "Already in progress. Marine units from 12 different species are providing security for refugee transports. No resistance from the civilian population." Lieutenant Commander So Young looked up from her tactical display. "Captain, War Commander Zelthar's flagship is alone now. All of his remaining ships have either surrendered or joined us. He's the last holdout." Captain Jamin opened one final communication to the Karathi War Commander. "Commander, your empire is finished. Your people are choosing cooperation over conquest. You can either join them in building something better, or you can be the last defender of a failed philosophy. What's it going to be?" Zelthar's reply would determine whether the transformation of the galaxy could be completed peacefully, or whether the old ways would die in a final futile battle. War Commander Zelthar sat alone on his command bridge, surrounded by the wreckage of everything he had believed in. Through his viewport, he could see the impossible sight of his own ships working alongside alien vessels to evacuate Karathi civilians. His empire had not been conquered. It had been convinced to abandon him. The massive screen before him showed Captain Jamin waiting patiently for an answer. Behind the human captain, Zelthar could see representatives from dozens of species, working together with the casual efficiency of a family. Former enemies had become allies. Former conquerors had become protectors. "You destroyed my empire without firing a shot," Zelthar said quietly. "We didn't destroy it," Jamin replied. "We offered it something better. Your people chose to accept." "Impossible. The Karathi are warriors. We take what we want. We rule through strength. Commander, look at your screens. Your warriors are out there right now, using their strength. To protect evacuating civilians, they're still warriors. They're just fighting for something worthwhile now." Zelthar switched his display to show the evacuation operations. What he saw shattered the last of his old world view. Karathi soldiers were working alongside alien Marines to carry wounded civilians to safety. Former fleet commanders were coordinating with human officers to organize refugee convoys. His people had not been broken. They had been liberated. "I don't understand," he whispered. "We were the strongest species in the galaxy. How did you convince them to abandon everything we built?" "Doctor," Minji's gentle voice came through the communication system. "Commander, may I explain something about human psychology? We learned long ago that there are two kinds of strength. The strength that takes and the strength that protects. Your people were always strong enough to be protectors. They just needed someone to show them how. But we conquered 100 worlds, and now your people are helping to rebuild them. Former Karathi colonial administrators are working with liberated populations to establish fair governments. Your engineers are repairing infrastructure instead of destroying it. Your soldiers are defending refugees instead of creating them." Zelthar activated his internal communication system and spoke to his remaining crew. "All hands, this is your commander. Report your status." The responses that came back completed his transformation. His weapons officer reported that the ship's guns had been powered down voluntarily. His engineering staff had disabled their engines to prevent any last-minute attempt at ramming. His security forces were requesting permission to join the evacuation efforts. "Sir," his aide Krex said quietly, "the crew voted. They want to surrender and join the alliance." "You voted without me?" "Sir, with respect, you were going to order us to fight a battle we couldn't win for a cause we no longer believed in. We've seen what cooperation can accomplish. We want to be part of building something better." Through his viewports, Zelthar watched something that would have been impossible under the old empire. Karathi heavy cruisers were using their massive cargo bays to transport civilian refugees. Thraxian merchant ships shared their food supplies with former enemies. Human medical teams worked alongside Karathi doctors to treat the wounded. Captain Jamin's voice came through the speakers again. "Commander, your crew is right. This battle is already over. The question now is whether you want to be part of what comes next." "What happens to me? I've conquered worlds. I've enslaved entire species. I'm a war criminal by any reasonable standard." "That's not for us to decide. But I can tell you this. Some of your former victims are already asking for you to help rebuild what was destroyed. They want justice, not revenge." Former Commander Vorthak's image appeared on a secondary screen. "Zelthar, I know what you're feeling. I felt the same way when I realized everything we'd built was wrong. But these humans, they don't just defeat their enemies. They transform them into allies. How can you work with them after what we did? Because they showed me that redemption is possible. That the strength we used to hurt others could be used to help them instead. I've done more good in the past month than I did in 3 centuries of conquest." Zelthar looked around his empty bridge and made a decision that would echo through galactic history. "Computer, open communications to all Allied ships. This is War Commander Zelthar of the Karathi Imperial Fleet. I formally surrender my vessel and my command to the Terran Protection Alliance. I request permission to join the evacuation efforts." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of ships offered assistance, supplies, and coordination. Species that had every reason to hate him welcomed him into their alliance. The transformation was complete. 6 months later, Director Gilan stood before the newly formed Galactic Protection Council in a chamber that had once housed the Karathi War Planning Committee. Representatives from over 200 species sat together, debating not how to conquer each other, but how to better protect the innocent. The Terran Protection Accords have been ratified by 97% of known civilizations, Gilan announced. For the first time in galactic history, we have a voluntary alliance dedicated to protecting the weak rather than exploiting them. Admiral Hyun Woo participated in the session via long-range communication from Earth. His simple decision to answer a distress call had reshaped the galaxy. "The Accords are just the beginning. We've proven that different species can work together for the common good. Now we need to build institutions that will preserve this cooperation for future generations." Captain Jae-min, now promoted to Admiral of the Allied Fleet, coordinated rescue operations across the galaxy. Former Karathi worlds were being rebuilt with the help of their former conquerors. Trade routes that had been closed by centuries of warfare were reopening. The galaxy was discovering what was possible when strength served justice. Lieutenant Commander So Young had become the head of the new Galactic Tactical Institute, where former enemies learned to fight together against common threats like natural disasters, space anomalies, and the occasional pirate fleet that hadn't gotten the message about the new order. Commander Taeho directed the Technology Sharing Initiative, where species that had guarded their secrets jealously for millennia now collaborated freely. The resulting innovations were advancing galactic civilization faster than anyone had thought possible. Dr. Minji established the Institute for Interspecies Understanding, dedicated to helping different cultures work together effectively. Her research showed that cooperation was not just morally superior to conquest, it was also more efficient. Former War Commander Zelthar found himself leading the Reconstruction Corps, using former Karathi military resources to rebuild worlds that his empire had damaged. The irony was not lost on him. He was using the same organizational skills that had built an empire to tear down its legacy of oppression. The greatest symbol of the transformation was the memorial built on the site of the Villani Research Station. It honored not just the victims of Karathi aggression, but also the possibility of redemption and change. A simple plaque bore the words that had started it all. The SOS wasn't overlooked, but perhaps the most remarkable change was in how the galaxy thought about strength itself. The old assumption that power meant domination had been replaced by a new understanding. True strength meant protecting those who needed protection. Earth became known throughout the galaxy not as a death world that had produced dangerous predators, but as the world that had taught the universe how to be strong without being cruel. Human ships could be found in every system where help was needed, not as conquerors, but as guardians. The Terran protection fleet grew to include vessels from every known species, but it remained true to its founding principles. When distress, calls came from the furthest reaches of space. The response was always the same. "We hear you. Help is coming." Children across the galaxy grew up learning a new lesson about the universe. They learned that there were indeed predators and prey in the cosmos, but there was also a third option that was stronger than either: the protector. And when new species achieved spaceflight and sent their first tentative signals into the void, they found themselves welcomed into a galaxy that had learned the most important lesson of all: that true civilization began when the strong chose to serve the weak rather than rule them. The age of conquest was over. The age of protection had begun. And it all started because one species heard a cry for help and decided that ignoring it was not an option.